Greetings, groovy people! I'm the Blue Dragon, and I welcome you to my channel. This Wednesday's Dark Horse video is the monthly Q&A for my patrons at the $10 level or higher. Will you? Won't you? That's the title of this week's video. In the background, I am inking this week's Act 6 page, which is over on Comic Fury. All the links down in the description for my webcomic, which is free. If you want to participate in the monthly Q&A, feel free to check out my Patreon page. Otherwise, there's always Ko-fi. Is it Ko-fi or coffee? I just want to pronounce it Ko-fi. Or just watching and subbing the videos, commenting. That's all cool and helps me out also, so thank you. I'm adding this warning now because of things that are coming down from YouTube and the FTC. If it wasn't clear, my comic and YouTube, particularly my channel, but YouTube in general, is not for children. If you're a kid, please leave my channel. Sorry, it's nothing against children, but kids under 13 are not even supposed to be on YouTube. They're supposed to be on YouTube Kids. So if your parents are letting you do whatever you want on YouTube, please leave my channel. Thank you. No offense again. I have nothing against kids, but my stuff's not appropriate for kids, so skedaddle. Okay, on to the Q&A. So while discussing black magic with one of my readers over on Comic Fury, the concept of will came up, and that reasonably led to questions about the will and what it has to do with magic and, you know, souls and the charge of one's soul. Will actually plays a major part in both the ability to use one's own magic and the charge of a soul, either upon a natural death or the removal of the soul from the body. We'll see how much I can answer in this month's video. For a recap on magic, what I'm talking about, the charges and all that, you know, with the soul, please watch this playlist. I've got the iCard up in the upper right hand corner. That will give you a recap of what's going on with magic, the magic system in Dark Horse. Okay, so the question, or the first question I should say, why does forcefully removing a soul make it negative while a natural death does not? To clarify, if a person dies naturally, generally speaking, unless their will is so incredibly strong and their experience was completely negative or their view on death or whatever has happened, usually the soul, when the body dies, will be either neutral or positive. But I already talked about how removing the soul forcefully is extremely painful and how, due to the unwillingness of the victim, that makes their soul power go negative. It's a terrible experience as a person's will is connected to their power. So I guess one way to think of it is that the body is a container and it contains one's soul. And it is connected to the container, obviously. Otherwise it would be floating around. Picture the connection as a string, kind of. Not literally a string, but just we'll use this for the Word of Wednesday analogy. If one pulls the soul out and those strings are holding tight, then pulling it forcefully will rip those strings or damage the thing that they're attached to. It was, you know what it's like to like pull something apart. It doesn't usually cut cleanly. But if the container dies, think of that as the strings being cut or severed. That connection is severed, but the soul is not really damaged. So most likely it will leave the container as neutral or a positively charged soul if the container dies, unless, again, very extenuating circumstances would be like if the person is so incredibly negative and their will is strong enough, their soul could be negative. And that would be some of the naturally occurring negative energy in nature. Again, refer to my other videos for that, because I won't have time in this one to discuss all that. So the next question I want to answer regards the willing removal of a soul, because I brought up self-sacrifice in the discussion with one of my readers. So the question that came up was, why does the willing removal of a soul not result in a negative charge? Generally speaking, I don't want to speak in absolutes, aside from with black magic. Black magic will always result in a negative charge, but sometimes, most of the times, I should say, willingly allowing your soul to leave will not make the soul necessarily go negative. So the will is like that string I was talking about, but it's in a way also kind of controlling and pulling one's own strings. It's how you use your magic. If you have to have a strong enough will to use your own magic or to have control over one's own soul. So there are people who have found ways to sever their soul's connection or string from the body or container. Remember that the body does not immediately die if the soul is removed. I was talking about how the very rare cases of zombies would be if somebody takes that empty body and puts, animates it or something like that. Normally, the body, if the soul has left the body, it will remain, but that would be like an example of someone in a coma. The body can't do anything. There's nothing actively controlling the body, which is what the soul often, what the soul does. So the soul and the will, they're connected. They're almost the same thing, but they're slightly, it's hard to explain, and I don't want to destroy all the magic of the story, so I'm not going to over explain it. But yeah, an example of somebody willingly letting their soul leave would be somebody who is astral projecting their soul out of their body. They send their soul out of body to do or go wherever. Doesn't necessarily mean their soul can do anything or touch anything, but they can, view things or see things elsewhere. Not something that happens all the time that everyone can do, but that would be an example of it. And then the soul can then return to the body, that container, and, be one with the body again. But there is another way for a person to do this. If the impetus is great enough, a person can sacrifice themselves and untie the soul from their body and connect it to another object or send their soul into another object or container. So a weapon that's willingly imbued with a soul might have a will of its own, or, a willing soul can be stored indefinitely within a container of its choosing, and that container will not corrode because it's not positive energy, and neutral energy is not corrosive, whereas negative energy is corrosive. One more thing to note is that if a black magic practitioner is trying to rip the soul from the body and the person recognizes that it's happening, and that person knows how to untie their soul or has the will to untie their soul, they can prevent themselves from becoming a negative soul and thus black magic by willingly leaving their body. This virtually renders the soul useless to a black magic practitioner because that soul has its own will, and storing it within whatever container the black magic practitioner is, keeping their other black magic, their negative souls in, that will cancel out some of the magic they've collected. A negative and a positive soul, they will attract to one another and cancel each other out for use. And I say cancel each other out, but really, in that instance, the positive soul would connect with the negative soul, and the positive soul would have control over that negative soul, because it still maintains all its own will. I won't have time to talk about it in this video, but the concept of, or the collection of positive or positively charged souls is considered, it's considered quote-unquote white magic or spectrum magic. I mean, white, if you think about white in the color spectrum when we're talking about light, it's all of the colors together, versus black would be the absence of color. So white magic is different because the soul will maintain consciousness of whoever they were, and it can't be forced on someone. Removing your soul has to be your choice if it's to be a positively charged or possibly neutrally charged. So I suppose someone good at manipulation could convince people to sacrifice themselves for this, but that's a discussion for another day. So that's all I've got to say on the subject this week, for this month, for the Q&A. I will probably, unless I get some questions from my patrons, I'll probably go more into will next month, and I'll probably talk more about how it relates to power and controlling your magic and stuff like that, but I won't go too much into it. But yeah, question of the week If you could travel, if you could send yourself anywhere, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be? What would you like to see and experience? Kind of related, but not really. Tenuously related. Thank you all for watching. If you feel like supporting the channel or supporting me, check out the Patreon or Ko-fi links in the description, or feel free to like, sub, and do the bell thing. Peace and love to all of you, fare you well, and keep on trucking.